Welcome to The Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn, where purpose meets performance and leaders are built to shift legacies. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, executive strategist, speaker, and the secret weapon behind leaders who drive transformation at the highest levels. Each episode delivers bold truths, power skills, and real-world strategies to help you lead with precision, show up with presence, and build the kind of influence that outlasts trends. This is the space where high-impact decisions are born, where influence is intentional, and where the bold don't just lead, they change the game. So if you're ready to rise, ready to lead, and ready to create the kind of impact that moves markets, missions, and minds, you're in the right place. Welcome, Game Changers. I am absolutely thrilled, and I do mean thrilled, to have our special guest today. When I tell you about Andrew, man, he blew me away. We had one conversation that was so impactful and life-changing that I just could not shake it. He has a story that's out of this world. I am so looking forward to today's conversation. You're going to be, I don't really use this word, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because I truly believe this is it. You're going to be truly blessed and inspired by this conversation. So I know you're probably in your kitchen, in your car, doing some other things, but I'm going to encourage you to go ahead, stop, get your paper, get your pen. Yes, even in the car, get your paper and get your pen, because when you get to the stoplight, you're going to want to jot down the jewels that Andrew is going to drop for you today. So let's talk about who he is. Andrew Poles is a seasoned executive coach with over 20 years of experience helping founders and entrepreneurs navigate the toughest challenges of building and scaling a business. He's coached over 10,000 leaders, worked with executives at companies like NASA, Dell, Netflix, and Epic Games, and founded 3 businesses himself. Andrew specializes in helping early stage founders and small business owners cut through overwhelm, build high performance teams, and lead with confidence without burning out. If you're growing a business and you feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, Andrew is here to help you lead with clarity, resilience, and impact. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Andrew. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. What a generous introduction, even though it was one that I wrote.
You That's what I was going to say. You know what? We found out I know how to read. How cool is that?
It's great to be with you again. Really, I'm excited for this podcast.
I am too, man. We're just going to jump into it because we don't have a whole lot of time today, but you absolutely left me wanting more. The questions that you asked were absolutely life-changing. And I don't say that. I'm not really generous with my words and language. So it's not a good thing, I know, but it's the truth, right? So I don't really like lying. So I like to, just kind of tell the truth, but you have an awesome story to share, some great things going on. And so I just want to kind of jump into it. So how did you become a business coach?
Well, so I started off with an intention, as you know, to take your route and become a PhD professor in philosophy and to write, publish, and teach and try to impact the world through ideas. And then when I was in graduate school living with my girlfriend, we were really struggling in our relationship. She was a single mom and I was deeply in love with her. And I was lying to myself that I was ready to be a stepdad because I wasn't. I was 21. And I didn't want to lose the relationship and I was selfish. And so I was lying about it. And then when we decided it really wasn't working to live together and we were moving apart, we weren't breaking up, she got pregnant. And when she got pregnant and I realized I was going to be a father, whether I wanted to be or not, and Sharon, and I know you know this, but I never wanted to be a father. That was really clear for me.
Wow.
I felt like, and this is a terrible thing for a father to say, but at that time, before I actually met my daughter, this is how it was I felt like I ruined my life.
Wow.
Because I couldn't walk away from my child, but I didn't want to give her an obligatory father. And I didn't want to be a father. I didn't really feel like I had any choice, any good choices. Obviously, that's not the way it went. The second I met my daughter, I fell in love and I became a dad and that changed everything. But I had to provide for that child. Right. So I left the program I was in and I forgot all about making a difference. And my whole life became about success. I just wanted to be able to successfully provide for my child, to not have to, depend on anyone else, to do that. And so when I started my first business, and my whole life became about success. And at the same time, I was really struggling to be a single dad and, run a business. I was fighting like cats and dogs with her mom. And I was 100% convinced that it was her fault and that she was just, impossible. And a friend of mine recommended coaching to me. And I tried it on for the first time because I had tried everything else. I tried counseling and everything. So I did my first coaching seminar. And in that seminar, I really had a I had a deep moment of confronting the truth of that relationship, which was, I was afraid of her mom. I was really afraid of
Mm.
her because she was an incredible mom. And I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like she was this incredible parent, and I was comparing myself to her all the time, and I always lost. And the way I dealt with that was I tried to find every fault in her I could. I felt like if I could find fault in her, then I would have more legitimacy as a father. And I took it out on her mom. And when I saw that, I felt a lot of shame that I had done that, to my daughter's mom, and I knew I had to clean it up. And so I called her, like in the middle of the coaching program. I left and called her on the
Wow.
phone. And I thought, if I tell her the truth, she will find me at the next possible moment and she will kill me dead. Like I thought, if she knows, but but on that call, I just knew I had to make it right. And I told her the truth. I told her I was afraid of her, that I was finding ways to make her wrong, to try to justify
Wow.
myself. I told her the whole thing and I apologized. And in that phone call, I discovered the power and freedom of being authentic for the first time in my life. It was the first time I had ever coughed up something that scary to say and admit. And it changed me as a human being. And it transformed the relationship. I'm not saying we had a perfect relationship after that. It was still challenging, but something shifted. And when I saw that and I saw the person who led that seminar gave me that gift, I was like, I want to be what that person is. And so within 2 years, I left that business behind. I got involved in coaching. I got myself trained over the course of 17 years of this rigorous training, thousands of hours, because I wanted to be able to give people the kind of freedom to be themselves that I experienced. And that's how it all started.
Wow. That is absolutely mind blowing. I want to go into, you said you had tried counseling. Had you been,
Yeah.
I'm going to assume counseling, therapy, you said all the things, right?
Yeah.
What made this so different though? Because we were always talking, you hear coaches and some of them are good and some of them are not necessarily the best. Let's be, but
Yeah.
that's,
I think that's fair.
par for the
I think that's
course. And
fair. Yep.
same thing with physicians. You have some good
Yep.
doctors and you have some that are not so great, right?
Yeah.
Like pastors, teachers, it really doesn't matter, every walk of life.
Yep.
Before you guys start sending me these messages about I said coaching was bad. That's not what I'm saying. So with that, what made this coach though, or this so differently than even the counseling and the therapy?
Well, I think this is speaking from my experience and the way I now talk about this. So I don't want anyone to hear what I'm saying like it's the truth, but this is useful. I look at therapy like, first of all, if you're dealing with something, traumatic or you have a mental health issue, you need to see a mental health professional. But that aside, okay, and if you're dealing with other kinds of issues, my experience of therapy is it's very much backwards looking, trying to answer the question, why are you this way? How'd you get to be this way? And to give you more room to be, to be with and deal with yourself. Coaching, by contrast, is looking forwards, like where do you want to go? And is applying frameworks and ideas to help you bridge the gap between where you are now and where you ultimately want to go that you don't see a way to get to. And so the person who led that seminar that I was in, that coaching seminar, the only thing he cared about was what we said we wanted to get, which for everyone there was some form of freedom. And so he went after with ruthless compassion up in your business, everything about you that was inauthentic, that was in the way of the freedom that you wanted, with no concern about how you were going to deal with what he considered to be the truth you needed to confront. And
Wow.
so I felt a lot of empathy in therapy. I felt like, I could explain things better, but it did not inspire me to go and tell the truth on myself in my relationships and to start to clean up my mess. And I'm not saying that coaching is the only thing that does that. I know, a lot of recovery programs do that. There's a lot of things that do that. But for me, the way I experienced coaching for the first time, that was it, Dr. Sharon, was I saw that if I wasn't willing to go into the belly of the beast, and tell the truth about the places where I lie, where I am afraid, where I am inauthentic and I'm pretending to be something that isn't true about me or whatever. If I'm not willing to confront it and tell the truth, I'll never be free of it because I'll carry around that shame or I'll continue to carry around that really disempowering view of myself. And so I learned that the quickest path to freedom is the truth. That's the
Wow.
fastest way. And so that's how I experienced coaching. That's how I got trained to coach, to help people see the truth, that seeing of which will first piss them off and then ultimately set them free, you know.
Wow. Is that how you work with clients today?
100%. I'm ruthless with them, but I have a really thick layer of velvet around the hammer, you know. I mean, I tell them what they need to hear, but it's all coming from a place of non-judgment and love on my part. I really am looking at what do they need to hear to get where they say they want to go. It's not where I think they should go. I don't have a dog in that fight. My job as a coach is to hear, even if they don't know what it is, what they're trying to communicate about what they want, and then to provide them with the opportunity to go do that for themselves. And so that is definitely the way I coach. I don't pull punches, but I also don't judge, you know. I mean, and I'm not saying that I'm like some kind of saint. I have these judgments, but I have trained myself to notice the judgments and to not let them come out of my mouth, you know, and to deal with myself so that the environment, the experience they have is of not being judged, and it's safe for them to really look at themselves and tell the truth to themselves about what's really going on.
Thank you for that. Let me ask you the question. When you think about leaders
Yeah.
and then you think about founders,
Yeah.
is there any difference when we talk about the truth that they actually need to hear? Have you found that one is more open to hearing truth? And I asked the question because I found in my own personal experience that when
Okay.
I'm dealing with a founder, right, they have so much riding on it that they are open to hearing more truth.
Yeah.
Leaders, I don't know if it's the internalization that this is struggling or not, and they don't necessarily have the financial investment, that they're not
Yeah.
necessarily as open to
Yeah.
really hearing the truth. And people are afraid to really share with them the truth unless they set that stage that this is a healthy space and that
Yeah.
if you share truth with me, that I'm not going to retaliate against you.
Yeah, I think my experience echoes your experience, so I'm gonna agree with you, and I'll add one nuance to it
Mhm.
that's maybe circumstantial in nature. So founders definitely operate in an environment of scrutiny, just like leaders do, especially from their board and their investors, and from the investor community, which is a very tight-knit, well integrated community where, you know, it's like if you do somebody wrong in that community and their experience, word gets out and it becomes very difficult for you to continue to operate in an environment where you are reliant on investment to grow your business. So it's not that they don't operate in an environment of scrutiny, but here's the difference. A leader in a company they don't own, especially like say a medium to enterprise size business, there is an inertia to the culture of that enterprise that it is very difficult to change. Not impossible, but very difficult. And it's sort of like if you're in this gigantic ship going down a river and you want to turn the ship around and you're one person, yes, you can take a pole and you can stick it in the bottom of the riverbed and you can hang on with dear life, but that pole is going to drag for a bit before it catches. And then once it catches, you know, it might pop out of your hands, and you need some more people on that pole to hold the line and let that boat turn around. So part of what leaders are dealing with is when they're not the founder of a business or when they're trying to lead a, you know, a massive organization with this kind of cultural inertia, there isn't necessarily an interest in authenticity. There isn't necessarily a welcoming, you know, of authenticity. Oftentimes they will get lambasted for that, just like politicians might do. Because, you know, leaders have targets on their back. To be a leader is to strap a target on your back. To lead is to go against the grain somewhere. Otherwise, leadership is not needed. You do not need a leader going downstream. You just go with the stream, right? So
Right.
leadership is about, to some extent in the today's world in the West, strapping a target on your back. So I think leaders struggle more with authenticity in part, not just because they don't have the same level of financial investment in the outcome, but because they can't turn that ship like that.
That's
They
true.
can't say we're going to go the other way right now and everyone just hops on. When you're the founder of a company, especially early stage, mean, you can call those shots. And someone who doesn't hop on board with the culture, they're gone fast. And that sends a loud signal. Whereas if you have 2,000 employees, it's not the same thing. So I do think leaders are more challenged for that reason than founders to do it. It takes more, it's more risk. It takes more risk, I think.
Thank you.
Would that resonate with your experience or?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely will say that. You have more invested, right? And so I'm not going to say I like the idea, but when I work with leaders or founders, I will tell them your business, your choice. This
Yes.
is your business, your choice.
Yes.
And you take in the information, but it's not necessarily, you've got to make that call. You have the investment here. Things are riding. You've got to look at, what's happening down the pipe. But when you're speaking, like you said, of leaders in an organization, totally different. You've got to be able to take in that information, develop some tough skin. You're getting information down, you're getting information up. Whose information do I actually take? What
Yeah.
information can I trust? It's so
Yes.
much, that's different. And I
Yes.
think that when you're constantly getting that feedback, you can lose yourself and not even know who you are and truly what you believe in,
Mm,
especially if you're highly impressionable. And we assume
mm.
that leaders at the top have gotten there because they've done all the hard work and they've proven themselves. That's not necessarily always the case. It
Yes.
could have been exactly the opposite of that, but that does not negate the fact that we still have an impression of who they are
Yes.
and how they should leave because you're in this position. So we
Yep.
expect more of them, right?
Yes. And I think to your last point, and if it's okay for us to keep going on this, there was another
Yeah.
question you want to ask. I'm here
I got
for
plenty
that.
of other questions
Okay,
to
okay.
ask you.
So I'll just do this briefly then, and if you want to double click on it, we can. That last thing you said about, the expectations that are put on leaders and organizations, especially if you're not the CEO, right? Because if you're the
Yes,
CEO, the amount of structural control and power you have carries a lot. But if you're not a CEO,
absolutely.
if you're a mid-level manager, if you're a key leader one level below the C-suite, if there's someone above you who doesn't really appreciate your authenticity because they feel like they get called to the mat to now be authentic or whatever, they may do something you don't like. So there's that. But what I was going to say is it's way harder with women in
Oh, I love
positions of
it.
leadership than men, in my experience. There's just a lot of um, there's just a it's just a lot of unconscious prejudice that I see, and this was a surprise to me. This is not like from some thing I learned in school. I didn't go to school to learn business. I learned business in the school of hard knocks, and so I have had female clients who I have watched take very similar kinds of actions and organizations to my male clients and got very different responses from the people who manage them or the people who were trying to undermine them from below and have found that it was much harder for them to maintain that space in a male dominated company than it was for men. So I think this is even doubly hard for women, and women need special kinds of skills and support for how to navigate those waters that men don't need to think about. So I just wanted to add that nuance in for any female listeners out there who are leaders who are dealing with this. The struggle is real in my experience. That's not a DEI position. I'm speaking empirically. This is my experience of coaching women and watching them get pushed out of companies for doing things that I've seen men do that were either neutral or appreciated. So I think that struggle is real in some companies.
I'm so glad that you addressed that because I have the same position. And I say exactly what you said. I am not promoting DE&I at all. And I've actually shared it with some organizations before we, recently elected President Trump, and we've seen a lot of that go away, that DE&I was going away, and we probably needed to move in a different direction. And so with that, you're absolutely right. The things, even when I worked in corporate America, that my counterparts could do and would ask me, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you say this? And I'm like,
Yep.
nope, and so you've got to be aware. And I have
Yes.
to decide if I'm going to roll the dice. Do I
Yep.
want to deal with this fallout that's going to happen? But you can say it or do it, and everybody is excited and happy. And we don't really give any, I would say, any measure to that. We just kind of
Right.
no, that's not it. We
Right.
gaslight people. That didn't happen. It's your imagination.
Right.
But absolutely, it's the truth. There is a
Yep.
difference in a lot of organizations, and even with ethnicity and race, of what you can actually do. I can remember working with an organization, and I had a friend, And we were both what I would call a middle level leader. And she would always say, well, why don't you say this or why don't you say that? And I'm like, no, you do it. And she could do it and nobody would say anything. I do it and it's the
Mm,
end of the world.
mm,
And it was just amazing to actually see the differences there, because she was of the persuasion that she didn't see race. I don't see race. I don't see gender. I'm like, that's BS. Everybody does.
right.
You may not treat people differently because of that.
Right.
But, to say that you don't see it, that means you're not seeing the experiences and the fallout and the things that are happening so that you can effect change.
Mm,
And so that's not necessarily the best thing to say, because there are going to be some clear differences of when someone speaks up, and somebody else can say, to Andrew's point 300 times and he participated in the meeting, and then Sharalyn can say to Andrew's point one time and she added no value.
right.
So
Right.
it's just,
Right.
something as simple as that, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about one of the things that you've mentioned. I believe it was the last time we had a conversation, was about high performers.
Mm,
And are high performers effective as leaders? Can they have the
yeah.
same skill set? And this
Yeah.
is one of the things that we see. We see high performers actually promoted
Yeah.
into roles,
Yep. Yep.
or they're high performers. Something happens, they don't get the recognition, and so they go and they launch their own company or whatever the case
Yep.
is. And
Yep.
so,
Yep. That's right. That's right. Yep.
so can you share with some insights on that for us?
Yeah, I think the challenge of this is if you look at what it takes to become a really high performing individual contributor, it's about the direct consequences of your actions on the ultimate key business outcomes that you want to produce. So if you're a high performing salesperson, you're talking to clients, you're talking to prospects, you're directly impacting those people. So if you're a super high performing salesperson and then you get promoted to a position of being a sales leader, now your job is to have conversations with other salespeople internally. And the intention of those conversations is to have them alter the way in which those sales reps are then performing with the customer. So you're one step removed. Leadership is a step removed from the action on the field. So the skill sets that you built of knowing how to sell are not the same skill sets that it takes to manage or train or coach someone else who's not doing that and how to do it. They are not the same skill sets. I think many people have somewhat of an experience like this. If, for example, you ever had a parent try to help you with your homework and it was a frustrating experience because your parent was really good at, math or English or whatever, but then when they explained it to you, it just made no sense. They
Absolutely.
might be brilliant in that field. That doesn't mean they're good at helping you understand that field. And so now you add to that, right? That now you have someone who, if they own a company or they're now a CEO or whatever, and it's their first time to do that, all eyes are on them. We feel like because we were a rock star as an individual contributor, we should instantaneously be a rock star as a leader, even though we have little to sometimes no experience or training in how to lead or manage. So then we have this expectation. We feel like we have to maintain the appearance of being a rock star. So now you start getting in this situation where not only do you not have the experience or the skills built yet, but you feel like you're supposed to. So now you're pretending stuff or you're defending stuff. And that just makes everything worse. So I think that the best thing for leaders to appreciate about this is you and no one around you has a right to expect that when you're in your first go as a leader and you're transitioning from being an individual contributor, you shouldn't expect, and no one around you should expect, that you will be a rock star leader in the beginning. You're going to be new. You're going to have a lot to learn. And the most powerful way to deal with that is to be transparent about it, is to be more committed to becoming a great leader where you're not than to looking like you are when
I
you're
love
not. And if you can take on that transparency and that commitment and that humility and create that kind of relationship with everyone around you, that you're in the game of becoming a great leader and you're new, and that because that you're going to make some mistakes and whatever, people will help you get there instead of put that target on your back most of the time if they're good employees, if they're in it to win it, as opposed to, having some own alternate agenda for their own career advancement or whatever, which happens, right? But those people aside, most people will, and especially if you're a founder, they will want to see you win because they win when you win.
That is that's game changing. So
Yeah.
I love that. And it's a position that I've never heard anyone say. So thank you for
Mm.
that. When you were speaking, what I thought of is that when we're coaching leaders or working with leaders, we always tell them about buy-in.
Yeah.
Got to get
Yeah.
buy-in. You
Yeah.
got to get
Yeah. Yeah.
buy-in,
Yeah.
right? And so what you just shared in a way was, hey, you're getting buy-in into me becoming this great leader. I'm going to ask for feedback. Don't have that expectation of me. Come along on the journey with me. And people feel more connected to you and they will give you grace, right? Well, he's just learning, she's just
Yeah.
learning. She
Yeah.
doesn't know anything. She's new. And so,
Yeah.
and you can kind of use that. Now, I'm going to say this, when you're 20 years in, you can't still say that, but you can say, I'm still
Yes.
working on, I've not
Yes.
arrived yet because you're still improving, right? I've
Yeah.
not arrived at, but I am still on the quest to becoming a great leader. And you
Yeah.
look at it not a position, a place to arrive, but it's a journey that you're on throughout your leadership experience.
Yes, and I want to share a story about that if that helps. Because I learned
Absolutely.
this again through the School of Hard Knocks. So, my first job after I closed down my business to go pursue coaching, I was doing coaching as a moonlighting job, like 20 hours a week while I was working a full-time job to pay the bills. And in that full-time job to pay the bills, I started off, like we're talking about, in a sales role, and I became a very, very strong sales rep. I became a rock star sales rep, and then I got promoted to be the general manager after 2 years being there. And I leapfrogged over people who had been in the company for 20 years. I was this new kid on the block. I had never, other than in my company, which was a very small company, this was a multi-million dollar company. I had never led, a company with 5 different divisions and all these teams. And there were people who were like, who the heck is this guy think he is? And I learned very quickly that trying to get people to buy in to me being in this role by trying to seem smarter or like I had better ideas was counterproductive. And I learned the hard way that I had a lot to learn. People made it really clear to me that was really not good what you just did. I had a lot to learn. And in that first role, I only learned what I'm talking about when I reflected back on it because I really tried to maintain the posture, the pretense of deserving the role by trying to prove I deserved it by doing great things instead of really caring about the people. I didn't. I didn't care about the people. I cared about how I looked to the people.
Hmm.
And that was a disaster. But I learned from that disaster. And I realized, yeah, that's just all about me. Leadership's not about me. Leadership is about having them win. And I wasn't putting my eye on that. And so my next role as a leader, I learned that lesson and I approached it with that kind of humility. And I got put in a role where I was now managing even bigger projects with even more people, and I knew even less. And I started off by saying, you're going to have to teach me. I'm responsible
Yeah.
for this, but I don't know this. I don't know this. And you know it, and I don't know it. And I need you to help me. I need you to teach me. And what I can do for you is this, and that went much better, let me tell you. But it took a lot of eating humble pie to be able to just tell really the truth, which is I don't know how to do your job. You do. And I'm responsible for it, but I don't know how to do it. So let's figure this out. So that's how I learned what I'm talking about. This is not a theory for me. I don't coach theories. I've tried that, and in my experience, it's really ineffectual because what hits someone harder than the power of the idea, and some ideas really are powerful as ideas, but what hits people harder than the power of the idea is when who's talking about the idea is the idea,
That's
that you
true.
embody the idea. We have all probably been around someone who talks about forgiveness with a righteous tone, like you should forgive people. And then we've heard people talk about forgiveness who are forgiveness. And when people who are forgiveness talk about forgiveness, it just humbles your soul because they've usually learned that lesson by having to forgive something that is unimaginable to most of us. So, if you can take on that posture of humility and really get interested in learning how to be a great leader and let people around you who you lead, who you manage, who report to you, help you do that because they know things you don't know, then that buy-in you're talking about, that it becomes huge. And then you can start to embody what you're learning through your lived experience instead of, the theories you read in some book that you think should work. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. And we see that there's a gap in an opportunity there when that happens and you're wondering why they sent me through the coaching and it doesn't work or it's not
Right.
working or why. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's because, like you said, they're not embodying that.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
you've not had to apply it. You're coming from the head, this
Yes.
textbook, and
Yes.
people are different. Their experiences are different. The organizational culture is different. And
Yeah.
so how do you navigate through those? And so that's really wild. When you talked about forgiveness, the person being forgiveness,
Yeah. Yeah.
I could feel it. I could feel what you were saying. And so it brings me to the question of the power of storytelling for
Okay.
founders in
Okay.
business. What do you think about we hear that founders, of course, need to learn storytelling capabilities. One of the
Yeah.
founders, I don't know if you've heard of Fawn Weaver, but I am
Mm,
absolutely in love with Fawn Weaver just because she is a phenomenal storyteller.
great.
And so don't know anything about whiskey or anything she's selling, but I just like to hear her tell the stories.
Love it.
So I couldn't tell you if she has a good product or not, but I know she's one heck of a storyteller. And so, but what do you advise leaders and business owners or founders to engage in their storytelling capabilities in the workplace or in business?
Well, so first off, it's important to get, if you just look at it like neurologically, stories are over 20 times more memorable than facts
Correct.
because stories engage so much more of your brain. They engage the emotional area of your brain. They engage your own memories because
Right.
you will start remembering things related to the topic of the story you're hearing. And really, we are a storytelling organism. We are a storytelling species. So that's the second thing is like when people say like I'm just not a good storyteller, that's just not true. It's impossible to be a human being who doesn't have something like, maybe autism where you're non-speaking or whatever. It's impossible to be a human being, to be neurotypical or whatever people call that, and not be a storyteller because we live in stories, period, full stop. It's the only way we work. It's the only way we can understand the world. So we are fundamentally storytellers. So what usually happens is people have unconscious competence, if you know
Mhm.
that term. They have an
Yes.
ability that they don't realize they have, and they have an
Right.
ability that they don't know how it works
Right.
to tell stories. And so what most leaders just need to do is tap into that unconscious competence and learn how to tell a story on purpose instead of doing it unconsciously. So everyone can do it. And then, I think the other thing too is that what we all want, what we all want is we want to live a great story and we want to be in a great story. That's what we want. That's why we love books. That's why we love music, why we love movies. We want to live and be in a great story. So if you're a leader, I consider it as part of your job. It's literally part of the job
Mm.
description that you give people a great story to be a part of.
Oh, I
That
love
is
that.
your job. And so you got to get
Mm.
good at your job.
That is so good. Andrew, man, I'm telling you, you are a beast. You
Thank you.
are absolutely transformational. So, speaking of good stories, I'm so
Yeah.
excited because you have
Tell
some
me.
more good stories that you can share with us. You
Okay.
share with me two good stories that, oh my gosh, have my jaw, mouth just open. And I want you to share that story with
Okay.
me. Do you remember?
Is it the story about my wife and I and
Yes.
that whole thing?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, yes, yes. That's it.
Yes. Okay. All
You
right.
see, I'm
So,
excited already. I'm like, yes.
yeah. So, every year I go through a ritual at the end of the year. And the ritual is I look back on the last year and the year and I age together. So I was born December 31st. So for me, it's always December, right? Because it's about to be a new era of my life. It's about to be a new year. So I look through the past year and I look at where did I grow? What did I accomplish? What did I fail to accomplish? Where did I do things I wasn't happy with? And I go through it all so that I can just be at peace with it and I can set it on the shelf like a book I just read that was, hey, that was a great book. And then I look in the future and I come up with a theme that I want to live the year from, not a goal or a resolution, but like a theme, an idea that I just want to explore for a whole year. So in 2021, I had reached this kind of new like a pinnacle for me in my career of ease and abundance and everything. And I wanted to get back on the court and really push myself. And I came up with this theme of to accomplish something seemingly impossible. That was the theme. Okay.
Right.
Now I was reading a book at that time called Born to Run about this ultra marathon foot race in Leadville, Colorado at 10,000 feet of elevation. It's 104 miles of running. And I'm reading this book and I'm telling my wife about it. And I'm like, this is amazing. And she says, hey, there's a Netflix documentary about the race. Let's go watch it. I'm like, great. So she and I sit down on the couch in January. This is 3 weeks after I created my theme. Okay. And we're watching this documentary. And lo and behold, because the universe has an incredible sense of humor, it's not about the foot race. It turns out that there is an ultra marathon mountain biking race at the same place. And I had just started mountain biking. Okay. So I'm at sea level in Austin. If I rode 10 miles, I was ready to die. Okay. At sea level. And these people are climbing 10,000, 12,000 feet up in the mountains. And I'm like watching this. And I say to my wife, as I'm watching this, I'm like, babe, this is crazy. Like, I could never do that. Okay. No, I say this. I could never do that. Now, I have no awareness in that moment of what I had just said I wanted to spend my year on 3 weeks ago. Like, I'm completely oblivious. I'm enraptured in this movie. Elizabeth turns to me and stops me in my tracks. She goes, oh, yeah, you could do that if you wanted to. And then I laughed in her face, like total paternalistic jerk. I'm like, babe, you don't ride bikes. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I ride bikes. I am telling you, I could never do that ever. And she looked at me like we were about to get in a throwdown fight. And her intentionality grabbed hold of my shoulders, like energetically, and shook me. And she said, you're wrong. She said, if you wanted to do that, you could do it. And something about her certainty, even though she knows nothing about what she's talking about from experience perspective, it literally knocked me back. And I went like there was a moment when my brain stopped working, went offline. Like, and then after a minute, all of a sudden my heart started racing and I started having thoughts like, wait a minute. Am I gonna like sign up for 100 miles? Like I had no intention whatsoever of ever doing it. I just wanted to watch this movie about people running, you know? So she says this thing, and all of a sudden I start to connect the dots on that couch with her. Like, hold on a minute. Like, I just said this thing. And now here's this moment where my wife is telling me something is possible that I know is not possible for me, not for me. And as a function of that, ultimately, I decided to register for and attempt to do that race. And I know we don't have a time for me to tell the whole story, but because of her, I committed to it. And because of committing to it, after 18 months of just grueling attempts and failures and training, I finished it. And along the way, had to deal with getting stabbed in high school, had to deal with the first time I lost someone in my life, the first time I failed at a sport, all the things in my life where I had taken on these limiting beliefs. And it completely changed me as a man and as a human being because she took a stand with me in that moment and questioned my conviction that something was beyond my grasp. So she completely changed the course of my life. I wrote a whole book about the experience. It was one of those incredible moments where someone just says this thing and all of a sudden your life just goes floop and starts heading in a new direction and you don't even realize it in the moment. So I am just a firm believer why I'm a coach is because I know those moments happen. In this case, it happened to be her doing that for me. But I believe that's our job with each other, to relate to and to each other in such a way that the way we see each other can cut through the limiting ways in which we see ourselves and open something up. That's why I love coaching. That's why I love inspirational speakers, authors, that's what I think it's about. So I hope I did your desire justice and trying to, tell the short version of the story.
No, you did. Of course, I'm fighting back tears over here because it was just as powerful for me today as when I first heard it. And I've shared with you, I just want to meet your wife. It's absolutely amazing to think about one person can change our life.
Yeah.
And for that person to be the closest person to us
Yeah.
and see more in us than we see in ourselves is just
Mm.
absolutely inspiring. And so I love that your wife stopped you. It was like, yes, you can do that. So it's such a testament to, I mean, so many different things come up for me, choosing well, having someone who
Yes.
believes in you,
Yes.
so, you
Yes.
know,
So
and
well said.
yeah. And then the ability for her to have an influence on you that you took action as a result of that. You were able to slow down and really
Yeah.
process it and internalize it and take action. And so I have a friend, he's a therapist, and his name is Aldewan, Dr. Aldewan Tart. And one of the things that Dr. Tart says is that women, you need to be cognizant of marrying someone who you don't have any influence over him or his decisions.
Mm.
And that really stuck with, well, all the things he's ever said. That has really stuck with me is, do I have
Mm.
influence with this person? And if not, then why not? And so being able to kind of back up. And so when you share that story with your wife, I'm like, wow, she has influence. And so that,
Yeah.
speaks volumes, because when we look at these people who've achieved great things and we want them to have a significant other to kind of help with the decisions that they're making, and they have someone to bounce those ideas off, or someone
Yeah.
to say, hey,
Yeah.
no, 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 you're being crazy, time out, let's not do that,
Yeah.
And so I like that your wife was able to do that. Story is so, it's so meaningful for me. It's not my
Mm.
story, but I
Mm.
have hidden it in my heart when you shared that with me. I am so ready for the book. I am ecstatic as I share it with you. I'm ecstatic for the movie to come out. So,
Yes, from your mouth to God's ears, as they
right,
say.
exactly. This needs to be a movie. I mean, it's just so life changing. And I hope, for our listeners that it's just as impactful. I've created a new word, empowerful. It's a new, impactful and powerful
Yeah.
for them as it is for me, because it's so meaningful. Some of us don't have people who believe in us. Some of us have people
Yes.
who see who we are, but they never speak it into existence or stop us so that we can go on to achieve greatness like you have. And so, that story, I wanted you to share that story because it's powerful, it's impactful, it's transformative, but also just how you got there, even backing up with you when you said, I set a theme for the year.
Yeah.
And so we set goals and don't necessarily achieve those goals for whatever reason. But what if we could start setting a theme? You have
Mm.
people who are doing, I'm doing my word for the year is this year. But what if you truly had a theme
Mm.
for the year? And when you share that, that's another thing that I've been kind of focused on and kind of gearing up that, within a week or two, I want to have my theme for this next
Awesome.
year
Awesome.
and be able to lead with that. So as I share with you, you have been so oh, I don't want to start crying. So impactful for me. So I just
Aw.
appreciate that. And you coming on. Would love for you to come back because we have so much more that we didn't get a chance to cover today. But I want to be respectful of your time. Anything you want to leave with our listeners?
Maybe just like my appreciation, because I know your listeners are builders, they're leaders, they're founders, or aspiring to be. And there's something really sacred for me about that whole process where you're one of those people who looks into life, and whether you're what people would call a quote unquote mid-level manager, meaning on the organizational chart, you're in the middle somewhere, not at the very top or the bottom. So whether you're a mid-level manager and you have a team of 12 people you manage, or whether you're the CEO or the founder of a company, you as a leader look into life and you see something possible that isn't there yet.
Mhm.
And then you organize yourself, your life, your effort, your energy, your thinking, the way the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, you organize everything around finding some way to make what you see possible real. There's something sacred about that for me. I think it's just a part of our nature to want to create. And the founders and the leaders, they're builders out in the world. Their art is business. Business is an art. Leadership is an art. So their art is the performance of people. Their art is the products of companies. That's their art. So I just want to leave all of your listeners with my appreciation for you, for the courage and the energy, the grit that it takes to be that kind of a leader. And, thank you, because that's what makes progress, human progress happen. The builders, the leaders, the courageous people that put their butts on the line for something
Right.
possible. I think I'd like to end it with that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to have the link to go to Andrew's site. If you want more, you want to work with him, then I'm going to drop the link and it will be on our page in the show, our show notes page, but it also will be on podcasts as well for, not, did I say podcast? On Apple Podcasts, iStream. I'm having a moment here on Apple Podcasts and iHeart, and wherever we stream, wherever you stream your podcast, you can click on the link and actually get to connect with Andrew and move to your next step. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some game-changing leadership, life, and business principles with us today.
It was such a pleasure always to be with you. I would be glad to come back. If you invite me, I'll come.
Absolutely, you're coming back. Thank you.
All right.
You don't lead like everyone else, so your resources shouldn't look like everyone else's. I created the Game Changer Leadership Collection for high impact leaders like you, visionaries, change agents, decision makers who lead with intention and influence. This free, high impact resource pulls from my leadership arsenal and delivers immediate, actionable insights you can use right now to elevate your influence, lead with conviction, and drive lasting transformation. It's not just a toolkit, it's your first step toward leading at the level you were born for. Let me show you what's inside. The Leadership Edge Sampler. It's a preview of my 10 daily power skills to sharpen your influence and impact. The Influence Language Mini Guide. Essential phrases to increase your authority and build trust in every room you walk into. The Leadership Blind Spot Snapshot. Because the greatest risk are the ones we don't see. The power of one visual aid. A reminder that even one decision, one tone, or one conversation can shift a team or stall a movement. The Executive Briefing Checklist, a go to tool for high stakes communication that drives clarity and alignment. The 5 minute accountability brief, a no fluff framework to build a culture of ownership fast. And we have the Game Changer Ascension Model Overview, my proprietary leadership growth map to help you scale your influence with intention. These are the very same tools I use with executives, culture shapers, and elite teams, leaders who know what's at stake and aren't here to play small. Because when you're called to shift systems, influence nations, and build legacies, you can't afford to lead on autopilot. This is where your next level begins. Download the Game Changer Leadership Collection today. It's free, it's strategic, and it's built for leaders who are born to shift the game. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, and this is your Leadership Edge. Thank you for joining me on the Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn, where we don't follow trends, we set them, and we don't just lead teams, we shift legacies. If today's message challenged, stretched, or inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, tag it, lead through it. Because real leaders don't just consume wisdom, they multiply it. Want to go deeper? Subscribe to the Ultra Influential newsletter for exclusive tools, behind the scenes strategy, and weekly mindset shifts for the leader ready to move nations, markets, and minds. Visit www.smpistrategies.com or send a note to leadership@smpistrategies.com. And if you're ready for next level coaching or consulting that positions you as the right leader at the right time in the right place, let's talk. This is what we do, and we do it with precision, power, and purpose. Remember, Change isn't just something you lead, it's something you become. Stay bold, stay brilliant, stay a game changer.